Welcome to Chamber Vision. My name is David Colby, President of the Columbia County Chamber of Commerce. Chamber Vision is an opportunity for us to share the exciting things that are happening in Columbia County with you. With us today on our show is my Chairman of the Board, Michael Sullivan. Welcome, Michael.
Hey, David. It's great to be here.
Can you tell people a little bit about what we're going to see today?
Absolutely. Today we're going to see our legislative breakfast, which was hosted at Columbia Green Community College. It was very well attended. It's always very well attended. And we heard some interesting things from our elected officials. And at the end of the program, we were able to take some questions from the audience.
Great. Well, there were over 100 people at this event. We have over 850 chamber members, and there are thousands of people in Columbia County who did not get to see the event. So we are going to share it today on Chamber Vision.
I want to talk very quickly about economic development. I've been working very close with Ken Flood to try to help make possible whatever we can do to bring businesses into Hudson and Columbia County. We've encountered many roadblocks from different state agencies. New York is business poor and business unfriendly, but as business leaders, you all know that. So when Ken and I encounter these roadblocks, we reach out to the gentleman that you see sitting up here. And for instance, Hannaford announced recently that they wanted to build 2 stores, one here in Livingston and one in New Lebanon. And we had some roadblocks with DOT. And I need you to know that Supervisor Meg Robertson called me. I think she called the Senator's office. And I think perhaps she might have called Assemblyman McLaughlin's office. And you need to know that these folks sitting up here help us get through these roadblocks and hurdles. And so it's these folks up here that need a round of applause because they're the ones that really help us get through these roadblocks. So let's give these guys a round of applause. We've done very well the last 5 years as a county, reducing spending, shrinking our county budget, and keeping our tax levy low, yet trying to meet the demand for services for our residents. The first quarter of 2011 has ended. We're currently reviewing our revenue and expenditures for the first quarter, which includes our sales tax and mortgage tax revenues collections to date. We're analyzing these results, and we'll compare our analysis to our anticipated first quarter budget projections. We're also in the process of trying to continue to figure out what the governor's budget impact is going to have on the county, and we'll continue to move forward with that. We're also set to begin the 2012 budget process. We're looking at a 5% tax levy increase based on what's happened in Albany before we even put our pencil to the pen or paper. So we'll have some tough decisions to make this year as we go through the budget process, but I'm confident we'll make the decisions that we believe will be to the benefit of the county and our residents. It's my belief that while reducing spending and reducing the tax burden to our residents to every extent possible, we must continue to plan and move the county forward and not play the let's wait and see game. I also believe it takes a conscious effort to be able to step out of the political box of safety to get reelected and make the tough decisions to move the county forward. With this in mind, I'll be bringing a plan for county office consolidation through the committee process this coming month of April, and then in the form of a resolution to the May full Board of Supervisors meeting, resolving to move forward with the recommendation to purchase the now vacant Walmart store and property in the Greenport Plaza, the center. This plan will begin an 18-month consolidation effort beginning with our Department of Social Services. We will then include departments such as our mental health, our Department of Probation, Health Department, our Office of the Aging, and our County Nutrition Center, our County Veterans Agency, perhaps our Facilities Department, just to name a few, which I believe will become a true one-stop client-based facility for all county residents. It is my belief that this new consolidated facility will allow county residents better access to more services under one roof, thereby allowing them to better manage their time and ability to receive services. Under this plan, we will consolidate the rest of the departments left at the 610 and 401 State Street buildings into the 325 Columbia Street building. Now, in addition to moving out departments from the 325 building and moving other departments in, I want to suggest that the medical clinic on the first floor will remain. It is my belief that this medical clinic area can continue to be operated as a satellite by multiple agencies, as needed during the week, such as our health department, mental health, the hospital, and other agencies that may be interested in delivering services to the population in that area. As you all know, Columbia County has currently taken over all public bus transportation within the county, including the City of Hudson. And I will make a commitment to you today that we will give serious consideration to adding an express bus from the City of Hudson to the new facility in the Greenport Center Plaza. This express service will enhance the current loop system already in place. I'm presently working with Commissioner Ken Flood to put together a plan for the express shuttle system. We also expect that a express bus will significantly reduce the taxi cab costs incurred by the Department of Social Services for transportation of clients, and this will allow the users of the express shuttle to connect to the county's regular shuttle at the plaza for any additional transportation destinations they may have within the county's bus system. Considering the economic climate we're in, I believe that we're able to take advantage of two things to help us achieve our office consolidation goal. The first is construction costs are significantly lower at this time, and there will be many construction agencies looking for work. Second, it would be wise to take advantage of the bond and interest rates that are at their lowest level in many years to finance the work needed to achieve our goal. I will be working very closely with Economic Development and Planning Commissioner Ken Flood and the CRC, Public Works Commissioner Dave Robinson, and the Facilities and Public Works Committee to see that this project is completed in a timely and cost-effective manner. Lastly, with this consolidation effort will come a recommendation to sell county-owned properties, such as the 401 and 610 State Street properties, the Soil and Water Building, the Aquawamic property, the current Philmont Nutrition Center, and this consolidation effort relieves the county of any further responsibility at the 25 Railroad Avenue property, which opens the door for the City of Hudson to move forward on their order of consent with the Justice Department for their own court facilities. Revenue generated from the sale of these county properties will go towards the debt retirement of any bonding needed to complete this project. I believe this initiative is a win-win for the City of Hudson and Columbia County. We've done enough analysis. We spent enough time and money making certain that we do the right thing. Ladies and gentlemen, the time for action is now. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the day.
Let me talk a little bit about the budget and what may follow after the budget. And what I've learned, and I've been doing this for more than a few years, is that in baseball, if you get to bat third, fourth, or fifth, you're the big money guy. You get the big bucks because you drive in the runs. When you get to speak third, fourth, or fifth, you get a little bit of a problem because much of what you had intended to say has already been said, and you've got to figure out another way to say it. So I'll leave that to the capable abilities of both of my assembly colleagues. This year's budget was certainly a vast departure from budgets that we have witnessed and participated in most immediately in the past 2 years, but certainly over a decade or more. This year's budget was a budget in excess of $132 billion, but it was a budget that reduced spending by 2% and cut state operations spending by 10%. There were a number of things that we managed to accomplish, things which I think will ultimately, immediately and ultimately inure to the benefit of the business community. We managed to reduce a $10 billion deficit and in turn reduce a projected $15 billion deficit next year to what is now anticipated to be a $2 billion deficit. So we wiped out the $10 billion deficit. There were no tax increases and there were no borrowing. Needless to say, there were many difficult choices. Some of them were painful choices. But it, for the state, I think, was not merely a major step and a great step forward, but it says to the businesses that are here in New York and to those who might consider coming to New York that New York, in fact, is open to business, that we're not hostile to business. There are economic development incentives, such as some of you may be familiar with the Power for Jobs program, which provides inexpensive, low-cost hydro to businesses, particularly manufacturing businesses. That program, which we have fought over for years and years, getting getting it extended 1 year at a time. That program has been made permanent. And the state now has the ability, or the authority now has the ability to enter contracts for up to 7 years. A vast improvement, something that businesses will certainly welcome. Energy costs certainly are one of the important considerations for any business. For those of you who have convenience stores, you may recall that in the past 2 years, when taxes and spending were elevated to the tune of some $14 billion, all of a sudden convenience stores got hit with, call it a tax, call it a fee, $5,000. A lot of money for a convenience store to have to pay. That fee was, or tax was reduced to $300. We didn't have the ability, with all the cuts we were doing, to eliminate it in its entirety, but hopefully we'll be able to get there in the next budget. We did some things with the Excelsior program to expand upon tax credits. There are a number of things that we did to basically say we don't want to be viewed as, unfortunately, we have been, perhaps the state that ranks 50th in terms of business opportunity and business-friendly environment. And I give certainly credit to not merely the governor, who took a strong position early on and stayed the course, notwithstanding the fact that he was being asked to embrace the so-called millionaires tax. And that's a bit of a misnomer, because the millionaires tax taxed people and businesses starting at $200,000. So while millionaire tax rolls easily off your lips, it in fact was anything but. And there were literally thousands of businesses that were forced to pay additional taxes because of the surcharge that was imposed over the course of the past couple of years. There is much that remains to be done. Certainly, and I think Roy may have alluded to it in some of his comments, directly, or more appropriately, perhaps indirectly. When we return to regular business, and I'll put that within quotes, there are a number of things that we're going to have to deal with. Mandate relief should be one of the things at the very top of the list. Within that, perhaps aside from that, I think we're going to have to deal with the issue of pension reform, which impacts not only every level of government, local, school districts, county, but certainly the state as well. Ethics reform. I do believe before the session is over, we will come to agreement on an ethics reform measure. Certainly, one of the issues that's hanging out there, which I would hope we would manage to come to closure on before the session is over, is a real property tax cap. Real property taxes are expanding exponentially. I think we should certainly make every effort to simultaneously provide mandate relief, meaningful mandate relief, because you really can't have it both ways. You can't impose a tax cap and at the same time tell another level of government that they have other responsibilities or obligations that you've imposed upon them that they have to pay for out of local tax dollars. The session, I believe, will take on a different dynamic once the budget is behind us. But the best news for myself and my colleagues at this point is that events in Washington have taken us off the front page. How long it lasts remains to be seen. I wish them well. I know from whence they come, but I think this will be a very productive session. We have worked pretty much in a bipartisan fashion. There will be conflicts. There are always conflicts. But in the end, when people are willing to negotiate and negotiate seriously, the results usually are productive results. And I expect this to be one of the more productive sessions we've had in the past several years. Hopefully, when we visit again, I'll be able to confirm that with you, or you will have some form of evidence of it. But to date, everything has worked almost as well as one could have expected. And as I said, nobody did it themselves. It was done in a bipartisan fashion. And I just would like to commend both Steve and Pete. We've worked on numerous things together, as Roy alluded to, most recently up in New Lebanon. Steve and I contacted DOT to try and help with the problems up there to bring the Hannaford project to reality. And those are the kinds of things that generally don't get a lot of attention, but they're critically important to all of us.
A pleasure to join you. And for those who aren't familiar, I serve 7 counties, Columbia County, Mid-Hudson, Columbia Green, Ulster, and then I pick up Northern Catskills, Schoharie, Delaware, then work my way towards the southern tier, Otsego, and finish in Shenango, about 20 miles from the Binghamton city line. I have to say, as I serve the district, and this is, some of you have heard this before, my belief is I can't serve 5 towns in Columbia County unless I'm a full partner with the Chamber of Commerce, with the county legislature, arts council, school boards, the list goes on. So invariably, you'll find me working with Steve or Marcus. I'll be in New Lebanon, I'll be in Ghent, I'll be in Greenport, wherever I need to be to get the job done. And on that score, my little Jeep, which I bought it used, had about 12,000 miles on it in December of '06. We're up to about 200,000 miles on my little Jeep. And after 150,000, the family tradition is we name the vehicle. So after a little deliberation, the biodiesel, I'm running on biofuel, is now named Eugene. So you'll see me in little Eugene, popping in and out, little black biodiesel. If you smell something that smells like McDonald's, that's my exhaust. So just on a quick note, and my belief too, as we do our job, we have our focus in Albany, budget and session, but to me, the work in the district is as critical, if not more critical, than the work we do in Albany. And we heard some reference to local economic development projects, currently working with Ken Flood on many projects, including agriculture-related projects, value-added manufacturing, things that can lift us out of this recession. And that's our belief. So hands and feet on the ground, focused in partnership, and that's how we move ourselves forward. Now back to Albany as a backdrop. We had this issue coming, and many people have struggled and suffered. There's been a lot of expressed frustration and resentment. You've seen the crowds converging on Albany. You heard the chanting, if any of you were there, even to the very hour that we were passing the budget. And the whole premise is, folks, we saw it coming. It wasn't new news. And we knew when the recession hit. We had been warned by the previous administration, there's a storm coming. Prepare. Change the way you do business. Build your economy. Help businesses grow. Make ourselves stronger. Nothing. All right? The most we get in education, for example, was the Paperwork Reduction Act. That was the meaningful mandate reform. And for those in education, I usually get a snicker from that because it's so inconsequential compared to the bigger picture. So as we move forward with the budget, new leadership coming in, the governor said, we have to stabilize the budget. And for anyone who was focused on the function of our state in the last 2 years realizes we were staggering, we were wounded, we were bleeding. We could barely stand upright. And any number of companies, whether they were contractors with the state or not-for-profits or education facilities, weren't even seeing their checks being paid to them on a timely basis. We couldn't even make cash flow. But yet, the pressure has been spend more, give more, endless bounty. Well, the reality has proven that that isn't the case. And so the challenge has been, how do we reform? Enter our new governor. And again, as the senator had pointed out, and Steve and I both, we work in concert with each other, but we also reach across party lines. We don't make distinctions when we do our job. And the governor had said, we have to stabilize the state first. That's job one. Let the state be fiscally solvent, prevent deficits, keep them from reoccurring. That has to be the primary thrust. So with that said, through the state of the state and the budget message, I like to move around. I use an acronym I learned in my master's, MBWA, Management by Wandering Around. I do a lot of that. But it's helpful because it gives you a chance to take in what other folks are saying, go to places where you wouldn't be normally, and it gives you a broader picture. So I'm sitting there with some of my colleagues from inner city New York, and the grumbling and the complaining and the backbiting, even against their seated governor, was unsettling. And I thought, how will we ever make this move forward? We have the governor saying, build businesses, build the economy, right-size government. And his own colleagues were attacking him, soft whispers, behind his back. I thought, how will we ever get it done? Well, gives credence to my belief that individuals matter. So to the extent that a person can exhibit leadership, that we can work in common, clearly state our goals, clearly define a vision that people can embrace, things will happen. And clearly we made that progress with the budget. But my biggest concern is what next? So we've cut the budget. All right, we've balanced. We're heading off the deficits for the upcoming years. So what's next? Next has to be the transformational piece. And that, my friends, will be the hardest part. So we cut some line items. But unless and until we can reform government, unless and until we can make education and welfare and Medicaid more affordable, we'll be right back here. And our economy, my fear is that the meltdown that we had may be a precursor to future years. Our wealth is still leaving our shores. It's still going to China. It's going to third world countries. Used to see Chevy Cavaliers and Ford Escorts on the road. What are they now? Hyundais, Kias, all right? Our lunch is being eaten. And this is not just New York. We're seeing a bigger picture of this, and I'm sure our congressman who's fighting for us understands this all too well. Unless and until we can change the way we do business in New York and nationally, we will lose this battle. And we will be fighting for the crumbs as our economic pie shrinks. And that, my friends, is the big picture, and that's what we have to prepare for. But the question is, how do we translate that into what we do every day? Are we on the ground? Are we working in partnership to restructure? Now, last year I started some public hearings on education. Quality, affordable education, twin goals. Have public hearings, come and tell us where we can find agreement. So I took some initial comments. Right now I have working committees. I'll have a meeting in Catskill tomorrow, 9 to 12, with a working group. Had one in Cobleskill, one in Unadilla Valley near Shenango County. Teachers, educators, business people, farmers, grandma and grandpa, y'all come. Let's sit down and have frank discussion about what we can do to provide for quality, affordable education. Vent, get it out of your system, get all the frustrations, but let's put a real-world focus on how we move together as a people. And that is what I'm waiting for in Albany. And that's where the leadership of Senator Saland and his majority, where Steve and I are working together with Marcus, that's where we're going to have to make a difference. But we need your help, because we don't have all the answers. You know, we know enough to be dangerous. And people say, get them out of Albany, quick. We have one, Otsego County Chamber of Commerce. If you go to Albany, guys, don't do anything. This is the chamber. Don't hurt us anymore. And that's a concern. We need to have your insights, your perceptions, your energy translating into wise regulation, regulatory flexibility, changes in how we support and promote businesses, and how we keep our institutions sustainable. So with that said, a lot on our plate. This next year will be critical. We have the pressure of the recession. We have the pressure of the cuts on these institutions. The question is, do we have the strength collectively to make the changes to allow us to be sustainable? And I use that political with a small p. Do we have the political will as a society? Because if we can't make the changes in the midst of a recession, when will we? So I leave that as an open question. Thank you.
And the senator mentioned New Hannaford, Lebanon. That was a big thing for us that we were ready to get fully involved in. I think sometimes just the thought that we're coming and getting involved helps. And I called the senator and asked him about it, and he's so good. He's been here so long that he gets it, and I learn from him all the time. He said, well, just, you know, we'll make a call, and usually what happens is the engineers get involved, and they go great guns, but then when we can talk to the administrators, we can usually make something work. And he did. So terrific news for the people of New Lebanon. That's a very necessary thing. And one thing I learned pretty quickly here in Albany is what matters most is what we do out in the district. It's not so much what we do inside that chamber, because quite frankly, most people don't know every single vote we're taking down there. But when we can help businesses and when we can help the community, that's what makes this all so worthwhile for all of us. And I'm very, very humbled and grateful to be here. For the budget cycle, I kind of view this as a budget, well, certainly on time, which is a victory. I don't know if it had anything to do with me getting elected. I don't think it did at all. But it's just nice that we got it done on time after so many years of frustration for the taxpayer. Great that it got done on time. It's a a budget that I look at, certainly not a joyous budget by any stretch. There's some very hard choices, but I think it was a necessary budget. It was a budget that sort of said, enough is enough. We cannot continue this path. And as Pete mentioned, this is really step one, I believe. Step two has got to be mandate relief and a property tax cap, because if we don't do that, we're just simply passing the buck onto our counties and our towns, and none of us are willing or wanting to do that. So I hope that the governor turns his attention now to mandate relief and a property tax cap. It's absolutely vital. For me, the reason I ran for office was really all of you. It was the private sector. The number one thing was jobs, jobs, jobs for me and for all of us, really, because without a job and without a healthy, vibrant private sector, we can't afford the public sector that we have in Albany. So for everybody that's running a business, thank you for having the guts to do that in New York State. It is a brutal place to do business. Number 50 is the number that's in my mind all the time, dead last on the list of business-friendly states. That is a disgrace. That is completely unacceptable, and that has got to change. So every day, that is my focus, is how can we help the private sector? That doesn't mean we have anything against the public sector at all, but the public sector really has to rely on the private sector to pay those taxes, make those profits, generate that revenue, so that we can afford all the things that we want to do and that we need to do up in Albany. So I applaud the governor. We worked pretty well in a bipartisan fashion so far. I hope that continues. And the governor, I think, is on the right track. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican doesn't matter. What does matter is that fiscal conservatism, I believe, works. It's the way we run our household. It's the way we should run our states and our country and the world. Really, fiscal conservatism works. And I hope and I pray that we just continue on this path of saying we're not going to spend more than we bring in. We're not going to continue to tax people out of the state. We have to make this more business friendly. We have to have jobs for the kids that are graduating from this and for every other college here in the state. We do a great job of educating them, and a lot of them are smart enough to know that they have to leave because there's not enough opportunity here in New York. So that is our struggle every day, and we are working hard for you. I can tell you that. We've worked very well together, and I'm very honored to be on the team with these gentlemen and Marcus. And I thank you very much. I don't want to go too long because hopefully there's some questions out there. And really, the Senator and Pete really hit on a lot of what I would say. So thank you very much for the opportunity to go there and represent you. And just know that we're out there working for you every day. Thank you very much.
The first question we have is for Chairman Brown. Chairman Brown, you had mentioned some consolidated services before, but anticipating continued pressure and restrictions on our local and county budgets. To what degree has consolidation of services been further considered, and in what further areas, if any?
We're looking at a lot of non-mandated services that the county currently provides. Certainly, it's not something that we want to discontinue, but we realize the big picture, and as we move forward through the budget process, everything's on the table. Specifically, we haven't targeted anything, but we are looking at everything that we provide that's not mandated by the state. There are other opportunities for some of these services to be provided, and we will be looking at these as we move forward. Again, we haven't targeted anything specific to say we're going to cut this, but everything's on the table. I guess that's the best way I could answer it.
Okay, thank you very much, Chairman. The second question will be for Senator Salan. Now with the budget passed and lack of education funding sent down to schools, how are we to afford a 14% school tax increase? Isn't this a shift in the tax burden? And this was a local increase that the local school district passed.
The reality is, as I mentioned in my opening comments, is that there were some painful choices that had to be made. There was no way that New York, and I'm a former education chair, I chaired education for 6 years, and the cuts in education were particularly painful. We managed to mitigate probably about $270 million worth of cuts and cost shifts. But I'm reminded of the Willie Sutton story. For those of you who don't know Willie Sutton, the infamous bank robber of the late 40s, I believe, and early 50s, who when captured was asked, Willie, why do you rob banks? And his response was, because that's where the money is. Well, better than half of the state's spending, goes to two items, health care and education. There is no way that we could deal with the deficit without dealing with health care and education. So Medicaid was dramatically reduced for the first time in anybody's memory, and both as was education, the governor's proposal was 1.5. We wound up at 1.2. While I certainly don't concur wholeheartedly with what the governor has said, the governor has basically said that there are enough reserves in school districts for school districts to make up the difference. Even were that the case, that in all likelihood would be one shot would not be prudent. The state should not do that, nor should local government do that. What we can offer and would hope to offer before this is over would be some significant mandate relief and pension reform that might ease that burden. Probably somewhere in the area of 70% of the expenses of school districts are attributable to salaries. The education portion of the salaries, the administrative portion is considerably smaller, and benefits, primarily pension. And add health benefits, you're well in excess of 70%. These are enormous challenges. Schools are making decisions that are painful decisions, but the bottom line is that if we do not change the dynamic in New York, there will be, in effect, a lovely wasteland called New York State, in which, as it is, we're exporting jobs and we're exporting our young. No one would have any reason to be here. As I said, decisions were painful. Nobody relished them. We did our best to mitigate a portion of those losses and to try and provide some regional balance and some of the disparities where some of the upstate school districts particularly were harder hit than the downstate school districts. But all we could do under the circumstance was mitigate. We could not eliminate. Next year's budget, by definition, will contain $800 million in additional money for education. That's already been decided in the context of this year's budget. And that, too, will be a challenge next year. But hopefully by next year, some of these mandate relief matters will have been finally put to rest, and there will be the ability to better deal with budgets at a local level.
Thank you, Senator. Next question is for Assemblyman McLaughlin. What are your views on the governor's plan for regional economic development councils?
Yeah, I think it's a good first step. I think that there's certainly an upstate downstate divide, and you see that quite a lot in the chamber, and it's sadly for us fairly well controlled by Manhattan and New York City. That's just the truth of the matter. I mean, their districts are a couple of city blocks, and ours are, in Pete's case, 7 counties, and for me it's 4. So there's certainly an upstate downstate divide. So to the extent that the governor is recognizing that there really are differences, this is a very big state, obviously, and a lot of differences in needs and what we need to do in those different areas of the state. So I think it's a good first step, and I hope we see some great results out of that. We've been somewhat insulated up here in the Capital District compared to Western New York, Binghamton, Rochester, Utica, Buffalo. They're in a lot tougher shape than we are. We've been somewhat insulated, and even we're not thriving the way we should. So I'm hopeful that we continue on that path. It's sort of so new; they haven't even really formed yet, other than in theory. So we're very hopeful that we see some good positive results out of that. And I think the first thing New York should be saying to any business is, how can we help? What can we do to help you? Not how do we fee you, fine you, mandate you, tax you, destroy you. What can we do to help you? And I'm hopeful, and that's something that I focus on every day. I'm a private sector guy, and I really hope we're turning the page here and making New York more business friendly, because being number 50 is just an absolute, really bothers me more than anything is where we are in that list of business friendly states. And there's some video of me in the chamber kind of arguing that point, and I swear to you, one of the downstate assemblymen said, well, it's not that bad, everybody hasn't left yet. That was the response I got. And that didn't go over too well with me. And I said, while the streets of Manhattan may be paved with gold, we're in a whirlwind of economic decline here in upstate New York, caused by out-of-control spending and out-of-control taxes. So that, I think, clearly illustrates the difference in city thinking and upstate New York thinking. Not that we're not all one state, we are, but we need to stand up and fight for ourselves up here, and that's something that the Senator and Pete and Marcus and I do every day.
Thank you, Assemblyman. This last question is for Assemblyman Lopez. What is your position on redistricting?
Geez, I always get this one. How about something more substantive? To be honest, the redistricting piece, the simple equation is, in basic premise, responding to the census, one person, one vote. And again, the translation of that into ideally serviceable districts that allow people to be fairly represented. The balance, of course, is a function between the trade-off and who controls where the district lines are set. And at this point, there's been some discussion of trying to create an independent commission. I think all of us favor that in concept. The question is, how do you truly derive and drive towards an independent commission, free of political influence, free of inside, behind-the-scenes agreements? And so, as much as all of us want truly independent, we know that the reality is, and probably will continue to be, the majority in each house of the Senate and the Assembly determining the lines. The big piece of that will be where the governor stands, and he's made it clear that he will challenge any district lines that are formed that don't meet his, quote, test for redistricting. So I think that's a battle that has yet to play out. Certainly all of us are affected, and the big question is, and this is an issue that I focus on routinely, is in addition to the district being as compact as possible, is it serviceable? And can the constituency meet the needs, or have their needs met? And I'll just use my district, for example, which is kind of the poster child for everything wrong with redistricting. I've been told my district is the pieces that no one wanted at the end of the equation. So kind of like the island of misfit toys from Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, you know, we've strung all these counties together. It's 3 hours to go from Lindisshop, from Gallatin, follow the curve of the district to the end in the southwestern portion to Afton. And so my challenge has been, how do I pull together regions that are so disparate? A lot of commonality, rural, agricultural-based small communities. But I have 5 different media catchment areas. I have 3 major regions. I have to swing back and forth like a pendulum. I'm doing 1,000 miles a week to service the needs of my community. To be honest, I'm spending $20,000 to $30,000 a year out of my own pocket to subsidize this job. 2 offices I pay for out of pocket. My travel, my insurance, my wear and tear on my vehicle, I pay for. Phone lines, computer access, internet access. So as I raise funds for political office, 20,000 of that roughly a year is coming out of my campaign, and 10 to 12,000 out of my pocket. So it begs the question, can an everyday person who's not owned by special interest and is not a multimillionaire, can the everyday person survive? And that's, again, another standing question I'd have for this community. I'm vested. I work 7 days a week. But that should be part of the test, too. Is the district serviceable? And are there appropriate resources? Because Steve and I, Steve McLaughlin, we have 2 Steves, Senator and the Assemblyman, but Steve McLaughlin and I, unlike Congress, are given fewer resources to do the job. I have about $85,000 or so to pay staff to cover 7 counties. As a result, I don't ask them to do much more than they do, and they work hard. That's why I work 10, 12, 14, 16-hour days, 7 days a week. So the issue of reapportionment is not just a function of the geographic. It's a function of the representation of the community. It's a function of the fragmentation. It's a function of having the resources that allow the elected official to do their job and represent the community. I do it because I'm passionate about it. My wife says, "You're crazy. We lose money in this job. What the heck are you doing? What are you doing?" But that has to be part of the overarching premise. And that's a battle yet to be fought.